Ah, this is bad! Oh, no!
On the test server relatively recently, Fuze has been given a 4th hockey puck launcher, but I suppose it's better than nothing. I'm sure Ubisoft realizes that the introduction of Ace to the game, a hard breacher with the AK-12, will certainly have an impact on Fuze's pick rate, considering most people were probably just playing Fuze for the AK-12 in the first place. I'm genuinely curious as to whether or not this change is going to make Fuze a useful operator. No doubt giving Fuze another gadget is certainly going to make him more powerful, but Fuze has always been in a state that makes it difficult to justify bringing him in a competitive environment. I talk about this a little bit in my Fuze how-to. Don't get me wrong, there are some instances in ranks where vertical play makes him very strong, but I still think a number of things need to be considered for Fuze to be truly viable, and I'll list those 3 ideas in this video. Ubisoft describes operators on their website with the official sort of mission statement as to how they kind of want them to be balanced, and as it stands, his role is written as area denial, disabling defender utility, and flanking. Yes, a 3 armor that's dedicated to flanking. I know. Making a 3 armor into a dedicated flanker seems about as effective as making a lineman into a running back. Yeah, the area denial aspect of his gadget is certainly there, and the disabling effect is also there, but I'm really having a hard time getting sold on this one. As it stands, his 3 armor rating makes it very difficult for him to act as an entry frag. Sure, he might be fun to steel club with in low elo, but once you hit high elo, that 3 armor rating isn't really going to help you too much. Most people are going to be aiming for the head anyway. So the first thing I'd do if I was trying to buff Fuze would be to give him a 2-speed rating. This would nerf his armor, obviously, and I understand that some people might think that will hurt him more than help him, but being a 3 armor on attack really sucks. Having a 3 armor rating with an ACOG on defense is a lot more useful because you don't have to peek as a defender in most cases. For the most part, you're going to be standing still and holding angles. It's for the same reason that Gridlock benefits from her 3 armored rating just a little bit, because the nature of her smoke grenades and crowd control gadget make her more suited to holding angles. On an operator like Fuze, it makes a little bit less sense because he telegraphs everything he does with sound cues. He has to run around to use his abilities. The big boy broadcasts his boisterous body when he is deploying his cluster charges, and the animation time, plus the sound cue of these cluster charges, gives people usually plenty of time to get out of the way. That being said, I'd say that Fuze's gadget shouldn't directly be used for kills. Much like a smoke grenade from smoke or a Goyo shield, it should be used for area denial to prevent movement through an area for a certain period of time via the threat of getting blown up. Making Fuze a 2 armor would make his life a little bit easier, but that ultimately isn't going to be the only thing that will make him viable. Even with this change, his gadget still has a number of problems, and I don't think that having another cluster charge is going to make him much more useful. It might make him a little more annoying to deal with in ranked, but in comp there are usually going to be better options to dealing with defender utility, namely an Ash or a Zofia, since their disabling projectiles can be aimed anywhere they like and don't have to be deployed through soft cover. I think they should add a throwing aspect to Fuze's cluster charge. That would allow him to fuse things from below floors, for instance, making him much more useful as a vertical play operator, and if the gadget becomes too OP as a result of this, maybe we'll only give him 2 cluster charges as opposed to 4. Throwing his cluster charges like a Wamai disc might be a little bit too much. I think copying the physics of how C4 is thrown in the game would do the trick just nicely. He'd have to be relatively close to get some usefulness out of his gadget, but he wouldn't be able to rain death upon his enemies from halfway across the room. Or maybe in the event that Fuze gets completely reworked, we could give him some kind of grenade launcher like Habanas, and that would allow you to direct the shaped nature of the charge and the way that it sends out all the pucks from one end to the other in a straight line. Another option that's completely out of left field and is probably going to scare the shit out of most people watching this video, but I'll do it nonetheless. Fuze's shield kind of sucks. The machine gun's viable too, but of course you have the AK-12, and these options are going to be overshadowed by it. I understand why the shield was implemented the way that it was. It's unique for Fuze to have a shield that doesn't have anything particularly quirky like Blitz or Montangs. Something that might be worth considering would be the ability to have the shield act as a secondary weapon, allowing him to swap back and forth with a primary like the MG or the AK-12 with the shield on his back, while keeping his 3 armored rating. He'd be the definition of a tank. I think this should be tested not on the live build. I think that they should work it out in the TS. Track the data. Is it overpowered? Is it not overpowered? And then, if we come to the conclusion that it is overpowered based off of a really high win rate, then we had a little bit of fun. But if you were worried about Fuze not being a very good entry fragger, well, I think this would solve the problem relatively quickly, if it is a little bit overkill. Also, he's holding his shield and an AK-12 in a splash art. I'm not really sure what that's all about. For the time being, I don't know if Fuze getting 4 cluster charges is really going to do anything useful for Fuze. I get that it's going to raise his pick rate a little bit, but until something is done about his overall kit, Fuze's effectiveness is going to remain to be seen. I think that the mini thermites, if they're introduced to Fuze, might tip the balance in his favor just a tiny bit as well, but we don't really know much about them yet. And no, I'm not covering leaks. The one thing that I think we can all agree on is his speed rating. Right now, him being a 3 armor is really making it difficult for him to do what his primary job is. Either make the gadget easier to deploy from range, or make him a little bit faster, or why not both? What do you guys have in mind for a potential Fuze buff? I'd love to see what you guys have to say. Let me know in the comments of this video, and thanks for watching. Deuces.